So let me make another attempt to tell this quick story. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I care about my community. There's a lot of things I care about. I care about this country. But my recent experiences with officers of the law has really kind of soured me on them. I mean, I was always one of these guys that said, just do whatever the cop says. And, you know, you'll be all right. You know, and if they ever said to me, if you got nothing to hide, you mind if I look in your car? You know, and I did have one other experience with a police officer doing something similar at my last job, and it didn't turn out good. It didn't, not at all. That particular circumstances, but let me just relay this quick story. There's a place that's maybe a mile or two from my house that I was driving over to exchange out a butane tank. We were having a function at the dealership, and I was going to bring a boiling pot and the burner, and needed to get a fresh can of butane gas. So I'm riding over there, and quite honestly, I was very distracted. I had had a conversation just earlier today with a friend of mine whose wife was just diagnosed with terminal cancer. And I was thinking about him and thinking about her, and her circumstance was just awful, because she had been fighting cancer in her life for 25 years. She wasn't 75, but she was over 50. And that meant that this woman was fighting this terrible disease for over a third of her life. She's had to deal with cancer, and the cure for cancer. Of course, anybody that's had it will tell you that sometimes the cure is worse than the disease. So I can imagine the agony and the discomfort and the pain and sorrow this lady went through for 25 years. And I was thinking about that on the way over there. So I pull into the store, pull off the highway, pull in, and step out of my car. And as soon as I step out of my car, there's a police officer standing there. I didn't look in my rearview mirror. I didn't see him. I didn't know he was there. And all of a sudden, as I step out, there he is, just standing there, right in front of me. And I look behind me, and I see these police cars parked behind my car in the parking lot with these lights going on. And he was a fairly nice young guy. He said, he introduced himself, and he says, I pulled you over because I noticed you weren't wearing your seatbelt. Is there any particular reason why you weren't wearing it? And I said, no reason really. I said, I was a bit distracted, and it's kind of a hassle to put it on because I have this lower back, yada, yada, yada. So anyway, so he says, can I see your license, registration, insurance? And I said, okay. So I gave him my license, which I had in my pocket, and I told him, I was standing outside of the car at this point, I said, I'm going to walk around to the other side of my car and open the glove box to get my registration and my insurance. And he said, okay. So I walk around, I unlock the door, reach into my glove box, and I got my registration, but my insurance had expired 2 days earlier, and I knew I was still covered, but anyway. So as I turn around, and I realized I didn't have it, I turn around, this other police officer who was riding with him, must have been a training officer, because he looked kind of old and weathered. is standing right next to me. I mean, invading personal space. And I was, again, taken aback by this guy's proximity. And he's got his head going in a, it looked like one of those bobblehead dolls. Looking in my car, looking at this, looking at that, trying to stick his head in to see what's in my car. And I turned around and looked at him, I said, "Can I help you?" And he says, "No, man, I'm just looking." So I reached over, locked the door, and closed the door. And the police officer continues to peek into my car, look in my windows, walked around to the hatch, looking in the hatch, walks completely around my car and is looking inside of it. So I turned to the other officer and I told him, I said, "Look, my insurance is on my phone. Give me a second, let me call it up. Let me find it on my phone." And he said, "Okay." So he goes back in the car, and I'm sure he ran, you know, the driving record, which was absolutely clean. And so I'm standing there a few minutes. It took me a couple of minutes to find the thing. I forgot what I had posted it on my phone, but he comes walking back up, and I said, "Oh, look, here it is, I found it." He said, "That's all right, don't worry about it. But here's your ticket for no seatbelt." And then he gives me the spiel and all that, you know. I said, "Okay, where do I sign?" So I signed it, and so as he starts to walk off, I say to him, I said, "So what was going on here?" And he says, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, this was an investigation." And he said, "No, it wasn't." I said, "The way this guy was looking in my car, he was looking for something." And he says, "No, we do that all the time." And I mean, at that point, I really felt like, really? You do this all the time? This is awful. So when he's finished, he gives me this piece of paper that's unreadable. And he says, "Just call that number and they'll tell you what to do." I said, "What number?" Because it's one of the old carbon copies. So he had a piece of carbon paper in between the tickets. So he says, "Here, let me write it down." So he wrote the number down where you could call to get the information, which was fine. But then as he leaves, I said, "You know, this is ridiculous." And he says, "Excuse me?" And I said, "Here you are, pulling me over, giving me a ticket for no seatbelt, which I understand is against the law, and yes, I wasn't wearing my seatbelt." I said, "But here you are wasting your time on something like this when you guys should be out on the interstate," and these are state cops, "you guys should be out on the interstate patrolling, giving tickets to these idiots that are driving on the interstate, speeding, and you look at them and they got their phones in their hands." And he said, "Yeah, that's a problem." I said, "You're right, it's a problem." So he just turned around and walked off. Well, I went inside and did what I had to do, and as I'm driving back, I'm becoming more and more aggravated and more frustrated with this situation. And I've looked at a few videos about know your rights and things like that, and you know, these guys have every right, including legal rights, to lie to you and not tell you the truth about anything. So, I mean, this guy could have told me anything other than he had to tell me about really why he stopped and pulled me over. But, I mean, they can tell you anything, like, "Oh, I'm going to take you to jail." And that's, I mean, it's a lie, but it's the kind of things they do use to intimidate people. Well, at that, I came to the conclusion that that was the last straw. I will no longer be intimidated by these guys. You pull me over, I'm going to sit in my car, roll the window back up, give you what you need to do, but that's the end of it. And as far as you ever getting my permission to look in my car, I don't care what you say, because what they'll say is, "Well, if you got nothing to hide, you don't mind if I look in your car." Or they'll add on, "We'll make this go faster, and I'm going to help you out by letting me look in your car, and it'll move faster." I'm going to tell you this, don't do it. Don't do it. Because all this is a fishing expedition for these guys. They're just looking for a reason to take it to the next step. Now, if you want to pull me over and give me a ticket for some traffic violation, that's fine. But when you start doing that kind of stuff and invading my privacy that way, I mean, that's it. I'm done. I'm done. In the state of Louisiana, your automobile and your motorcycle are considered extensions of your home. So you can keep things, if you know what I'm talking about, on your bike, not necessarily concealed, but in your bike, and you don't have to tell them jack shit. Just like if they came to your house, you don't have to tell them whether you have a gun or not. The only way they can get in to your house is one of two ways. Either A, they ask and you grant them permission, or B, they show up with a duly authorized search warrant. And unless they come to my house or they want to look at my car with a search warrant, the answer is no. And I don't think I'm not going to be ugly about it. I'm not going to start a confrontation. I'm going to be as nice about it as I can, but I'm going to let them know that I know my rights and I know what you can do and you can't do. And the first thing I'm going to tell them is, I understand that you can lie and tell me anything. So, but on the other hand, I understand you have a difficult job. I know how trying it can be, and I can understand the situation that you never know who you're going to pull over. But I'm sorry, officer, I do not consent to searches. That's it. End of story. I don't have to tell them anything other than that. And if you you hear a lot of these defense attorneys talk, they tell you, don't answer questions, because they'll try to trick you up. So as far as that goes, I'm done with them. And then I went back, and after all the circumstance, I went back and looked it up, the state laws about identification. And if he pulls you over for a traffic stop, you have to provide identification. If you're walking along the street, and I've seen them do this, walking along the street and they'll walk up to you and say, let me see some ID. You know what? No. No. In the state of Louisiana, the law says you have to tell them your name and you have to tell them where you live. But other than that, you don't have to do jack. So all of these times and all these people that tell you, oh no, you got to carry the ID with you. No, you don't. Not if you're a pedestrian. You don't have to do it. So that's my rant and rave for today.